All right, welcome back, English students. I'm happy to see you all. Hope you're excited about starting your project today. I want to give a shout out to, I think, my special guest, Pooh Bear. Normally, he would be in the hands of Gio Lopez, but please know, Gio, I am taking very good care of him. He says hi. This video is going to be kind of a live walkthrough. I'm kind of going to show you how to work on this project, and keep in mind your goal by the end of today is to finish the first half of your final PowerPoint presentation. That means you're going to come up with your intro, your hook, you're going to organize your key terms and background info, and you'll begin finding key points from what you have researched. I will say you don't have to watch the entire video. If you only have one part that you want to, I think, focus on, or I think you need more help on, feel free to skip around to different parts. Check below in the description for timestamps. I'll leave those there. One more thing that I'm really happy to talk about is we actually have a Google Hangout on Friday. Woo! So this is optional, but a lot of you asked, can we have time to like collaborate together and work with our friends on these projects? The answer is yes. So come hang out Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. I'll post a link on Classroom. I'm gonna be there. I am probably working on a video because a lot of you want me to do that. So that'll be my project. Super excited about that. But I'm also gonna be working on the PowerPoint. I'll probably just do both of them because I've got a lot of time. All right, so the title of my presentation is something that you all should know. It is domestic abuse in the Korean American community, and I'm focusing on what it takes for victims to reach out. So the first thing I want to do is think of a hook. You all remember this word. It's a way to hook your audience, capture their attention, and you really want to ask yourself, what would really grab their attention so they care about your topic, right? And there are a lot of ways to do that. You can ask a question, you can make a strong statement, you could tell a personal story that connects to the topic. You could even help them imagine or think of, I think, like sort of a different world. Imagine this, what if this? All of these are good strategies. I would say my topic is abuse, and I know that can be a little bit dark for a lot of people. A lot of people have a hard time talking openly about that. Um, so I think it's really important people understand how serious the issue is, and I think that's part of why I'm gonna try, I think, telling a story. And I'm gonna just delete this right now. Um, so I talk a lot about this, but my family was not, I think, like the most healthy family environment growing up, and my parents tried their best, but they carried, I think, a lot of trauma, a lot of, I think, sort of violence, I think, sort of from their family history. That's very common in a lot of Korean households, um, and I think that when I was a kid, I really saw that firsthand. I saw a lot of the pain and a lot of the sort of, I think, like emotional, I think, sort of trauma that my mom especially went through. And one thing that I asked a lot to myself is this question, right? And people, I think, say this all the time, like, why don't you just leave? And what people don't know is that it's actually really hard to leave, right? I think when I was 8, I didn't really know that. I think when I'm older, when I got older, I think I began to understand it a lot more. So for me, I think, like, when I think about abuse, I think a lot about, like, that question, like, people, I think, are stuck in these situations for a lot of different reasons, but that question, I think, like, is one that people keep asking. So I'm gonna use that as my hook. I'll talk about when I'm 8. I don't know if I have a picture of myself, I think, when I was that little, so maybe I'll go look for, I think, one right now. I think there might be images, I think, here of sort of, I think, let's see, I think, if I think, like, sort of, I think, like, mother in despair. And there are a lot of photos on Google. Like, I mean, I'm sure that you've all, I think, like used to think like Google Images before, um, but I think that one thing that you know, can use this for, I think, is to find images that you think sort of help you tell your story. I use this all the time, um, and I think sometimes I think you get some good images. You know, I think like abused woman is another example here. And you have, I think, these images I think are definitely upsetting to me. I mean, there some of them are super, super, I think, like physical. But I think this one, I think, is one that I feel like is pretty simple, but really gets my point across. I'm gonna copy that there. And you know, this is kind of a new idea, but I actually think I have an idea here. I'm gonna just delete that because obviously this is my intro. I'm gonna see if I can do this. Be really cool if I could. So I'm gonna just, I think, bring that forward maybe. Can I like just bring it? Okay, I'll think about it later. It's fine. For now, I'll just, I think, like cut it. But I kind of want the image to fit the entire screen. Um, I might need to switch a little bit, which is fine. I think it'll, I think, get the image across. But like, can I like? Oh, there we go. Wow, I like this. Go for a fancy font here. Nah, I don't know if I love that. The font choice, I think, is crucial. We all know this. uh, yeah, I don't know why. I think that feels good to me. I think it's, I think, like it feels kind of formal to me. It's got like kind of like a nice sharp look. But yeah, I think that works. Yeah, so that is my intro. I'm gonna open with a story of me being 8, watching my mom with her head in her hands, really trying to, I think, hold herself together after another really bad day. And that question, I think, is one that I still think about sometimes. Like, why didn't you just leave? And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about, I think, sort of why there are so many women, so many, I think, men, so many victims in this position who don't ask for help or reach out for help. So that is my intro. Um, the next thing I'm going to do is copy my research question. This should be the easiest part of the entire project. I literally have it over here. What factors impact Korean American domestic abuse survivors' ability to ask for help? I'm going to copy that. A cool thing you should know is that if you want to, I think, like copy something into a new document and you don't want it to, I think, like show up, I think, like with all of the weird formatting, there's actually an option here where you can paste without formatting, and that'll actually copy the text in, but it'll stay in the same, I think, sort of font, same size as the rest of, I think, your PowerPoint. So that's really, I think, like a good way of, I think, just moving things in without having it get messy. Pardon me. All right. Yeah, getting it done, getting it done. So that is my question. I've got my intro, I've got my question. Next step looks like it is key terms and background information. You all did this on your research log, so this is probably going to be, I think, another thing where you copy and paste and then just slightly modify, like revise what you have. But if you need a reminder, your key terms and background info are kind of important things that everyone should know about your topic. If someone didn't know anything about abuse or about soccer or about gang violence, you'd want them to know, I think, at least these things. So just help them get a good idea of the basics here. Again, this is the exact same thing that you had in your research log. I already have, I think, my facts over here, so this is kind of perfect. I defined domestic abuse in Korean American. Hope this doesn't, I think, like turn into a hot mess. Oh my god. So I'm gonna copy it again. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a little bit, I think, messy. We'll figure it out though. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I think, like condense this. Domestic abuse is a pattern meant to give one person control and power over another. Um, it's not always physical. It can be emotional, verbal, economic, even sexual. This can be a lot simpler. I think just you don't need, I think, all of that. Can be physical, emotional, verbal, economic, or even sexual. So I kind of took the same, I think, definition, but I made it a little bit shorter because when you see things on, I think, like slides, you don't have time to think, look at everything. Your eyes actually don't read the same way that you'd read a book or read, I think, like a document. So you want to make sure you're being as sort of concise as you can. That means short lines, short explanations. I think really, I think, like trying to keep things as snappy as possible. All right, there we go. I have my info about Korean Americans here. I'm gonna actually make this a little bit smaller because I can't see everything. This is just like a lot of, okay. That's like a little bit better. All right. I don't need, I think, the links over here. I can just put that in my citations later. Okay, but I have my facts about, I think, Korean Americans over here. I might just say, I think that like domestic abuse is a big issue in the Korean American community. So I think just put that context there. And then you have, I think, like these bullet points. There's 1.8 million people living in the US that are Korean American, and about 20% of Korean Americans experience domestic abuse in their relationship. All right, I can actually go bigger here, I think, bigger fonts. Now I have, so that's it. I have my key terms and my background info. The last thing I'm gonna do before I move on to my actual key points is just to color code things a little bit. I don't know about y'all. My eyes are not the best. So when I'm like looking at, I think, a presentation, having these, I think, colors as like a visual for me is often really helpful. So like this could be, I think, like a way to, I think, just set that definition apart a little bit. And then you have these numbers over here: 1.8 Korean million, 1.8 million Korean Americans. You have 19.5% of Korean Americans who experience abuse in their relationship. So I'm gonna do a little bit of thing formatting here. Oops, the highlight tool is here. Just to make that stand out a little bit. So if someone's looking at that, they're like, damn, okay, I know what abuse means. I know that it's 1.8 million people. I know it's 19.5%. That's kind of a cool way you can sort of make things stand out, like pop a little bit visually. Okie doke. So that is my key terms and background info. Gonna take a quick stretch break and pull my leg up all the way. Oh, okay. Wow. Other leg. Just, I'm gonna fall over. Oh, I'm gonna fall over. But it's fine. And that low key like that, so it's fine. Woo! All right. So those are my key terms and background info. We're gonna move on to the next part, and this is the last thing that you'll have to turn in today, which is at least two of these three key points. For each key point, you want to think, sort of talk about one big idea, one really important thing you've learned from your research, and you want to include at least one piece of evidence from your research for each key point to support. You can include two pieces of evidence. That's optional, but I would really encourage you all, if you have that evidence, why not push yourself a little bit more to, I think, work in as many ideas, as many things you've learned as you can. So you have your three key points. Again, one way of thinking about it is, I think, thinking of the social, economic, political perspectives and thinking about what you've learned by looking at it from each point of view. You don't have to, but for some people, this is going to be a really helpful way to organize your ideas. Last thing I'm going to say before I actually show you what to do is you don't have to go in that exact order either. For example, like I don't exactly know what I'll say for social yet, but I do know what I'm going to say for economic. because it's one of the first things I thought about. So if you want to move these around a little bit and place to order, that's totally fine. All right, wonderful. So now I'm going to show you how to look at your research and pull out those key points. Now, you've all at this point done your research tracker, which means you've read at least 6 different sources about your topic. What that means is you've got a lot of cool ideas to work with and to pick up, right? So a couple questions you might ask yourself is, number one, just what do you remember, right? What were the most powerful, memorable, or interesting things you learned as you read about your topic? Because I think oftentimes I think like your heart is actually a really good, I think, like sort of guide, and that intuition you have about what things are important to you is actually going to help you a lot. The other thing you can think about is just, are there points that come up over and over and over again? Like, is there like a argument that I think like you see not in one, not in two, but like 3 or 4 different articles? Because if there is, that's actually a good sign. That means a lot of your research is actually hitting on the same points, which means that it's probably important in some way. So think about it that way, right? I think like just look at, I think like what you've collected, and really try to, I think, like be thoughtful about, I think, what things you choose from that, as I think like ideas that are important and worth talking about. The first thing I'll talk about today is definitely the impact of poverty. This is the first thing that came to mind, was I think like the facts that I think like I collected about, I think like how many Korean American people live in poverty today. So that was something that I definitely wanted to, I think, lift up first. Um, okay, so according to the chart, 19.3% of Korean seniors, 10.1% of Korean children live in poverty. That's way higher than the average poverty rate in the US on both counts, especially for, I think, kids. It's like double, I think, the rate for everyone. So I'm going to copy that in. Evidence one. You can use, I think, the quote or summarize the evidence in 1 or 2 bullet points. I am going to just copy it in for now. And it's too long, so never mind. I'm going to actually summarize it. I think almost 20% Korean elders and 10% of Korean children live in poverty. Yeah. So that's, I think, my first point that I want to make. And obviously, you know, this makes it hard to leave. So that's the first point I want to make. I have a second point. It's actually from a different source. Because I think that the other thing that I thought about is, I think like it's not, I think like just to think like children and elders, it's also women. Because there's this quote I remember from my last, I think, source, where it talks about how like when Korean women get married, she kind of like belongs to her husband. And so what ends up happening is, I think, a lot of Korean women end up, I think, not having jobs because they're busy taking care of the children, taking care of the house, while I think men are the ones, I think, for sort of bringing back money. Which means that if a woman's being abused, obviously it's harder to leave because she doesn't have a job to support herself with. So again, I'm gonna, I think, just summarize the evidence. This is probably what you'll be doing most of the time, just because these quotes, I think, are pretty long. So I'm like, I don't want to fill the entire thing with text. Yeah. So I think gender roles play a role in who is more vulnerable in families. Yeah, like women, I think, like are definitely more vulnerable than men. On the right side, you might notice there's a little bit of blank space, right? You have some choices here. I would say if you have images, videos, or charts that really help you illustrate your point, this could be a really good place to put them. In fact, I'm going to go back to Google Images, and I'm going to Google Korean American poverty and see if there's anything that comes up. Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is a picture of, I think, like sort of I think poverty in I think Koreatown. Um, yeah, this I think this is probably relevant for my research. So we're gonna do the same thing, just that good old copy and paste. Ooh, did it work? It didn't work, right? Oh, okay, it did work. Oh, never mind. Lol. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll do here is just to summarize the key point in my own words. And this can be, I think, like one sentence, right? Really short. And the key point would obviously be high poverty rates make it hard for Korean Americans to leave abusive situations. Yep. And there you have it. I have my key point, which is, I think, about poverty and abuse. I have two pieces of evidence, I think, that'll really do, I think, a good job of backing up my point. And I have, I think, a visual here, just so I think people, I think, get sort of a good idea in their heads of, I think, sort of what this means and what it looks like. What it looks like. Okay. At this point, you might be, I think, like, okay, I got it. I'm good to go. In that case, awesome. Get started. But if you feel like you're still, I think, kind of like, not totally sure, I'm gonna do one more. And I know I'm a pretty fast talker, so I'm gonna go a little bit slower this time so we get a good idea. So let me think. Do I want to do social first or do I want to do political first? I'm not totally sure. I feel like I did a lot of reading on, I think, like the politics and the government, so I feel like that might actually be the next one. All right, so gonna place the order again. I'm actually gonna, I think, like put my idea first here because I actually have a good idea of what I want to say. I'm gonna say like basically the government I think like policies make it hard for Korean Americans to trust trust the government, yeah, and ask for help. Yeah. That one's kind of long actually, but it's fine. I might come back and I think just revise it a little bit. But I actually have a lot of good info on this one because I'm gonna go back to my research and I'm like, this is one of the really big issues. Hi Diana. Good to see you on the log. But I remember that there was oh my god, which one was it? There's so much research now. I'm like, oh my god, this is like 12 different quotes that I found. Um, oh, okay, I remember what it was. Okay, I remember what it was. So there's the story about, I think, a woman named Cho Nan-hee. And Nan-hee was a mother who fled her abusive husband. Um, the problem is that she was undocumented, and so when she asked for help, the government actually arrested her. And there was this long fight, I think, like sort of, I think, like to prevent her from being deported and being separated from, I think, her child. So that was definitely a messed up story. So yeah, that was the point I was thinking about. I think it was, I think, like I think for undocumented Koreans, like Cho Nan-hee, I think reaching out often means, I think, like being arrested or deported. That was really simple. All right. I might even have an image for her. Like I feel like no, she was like all over the news. So I feel like this is, I think, one example where I'm like, definitely there's an issue here. Oh my god, this picture like breaks my heart. It makes me so angry. Like I'm literally my face is like getting sore right now. But like you see her, right? I mean, like she's literally, I think, like standing in front of the court, I think, like really begging to, I think be able to see her family, be able to see her children, like take care of her child in the way that she can. So yeah, huge issue. People are undocumented and it sucks. And like oftentimes like they're not able to ask for help without, I think, facing these, I think, kinds of challenges. Um, did I have a second point for this? I think I did actually. I'm gonna go back. So I'm gonna go back down. This is about culture, so that one was not quite it. But there was definitely a role. Here we go. All right. Yeah, this article talks a lot about, I think, the government too. And there's this really cool point here where like the article that I read last talked about part of why like Korean people don't trust the government in general. It's not just the American government; it's also the Korean government because little do you know, Korea for a long time was ridiculously corrupt. Like my dad, I think will talk a lot about that. I think that like the government, I think like back in those days, I think like was definitely um, not to be trusted. And Korean, immigrants come from a place where I think the government is corrupt. They don't trust the government, and that's actually part of why they also don't trust the American government. And then imagine, I think, like not knowing the language. I think like not knowing, I think like the way America's laws work. Like obviously, people will not trust, I think, the system enough to ask for help. Um, yeah, and Koreans, I think, so I think Koreans often, I think, like don't, I think, have enough trust in the government to ask for help. Yeah, I'm gonna say Korean abuse victims actually. Um, and actually, I'm going back to, I think, that key point. I'm gonna read it out again. The government policies make it hard for Korean Americans to trust the government and ask for help. That was my first idea. I honestly don't like it. I could do better than that. So I'm actually gonna flip it. Because I think it's actually more about, I think, Korean Americans, right? I think Korean Americans, um, I think like don't have a lot of trust in the government, and the government is partially to blame, but it's really about trust. So maybe there's not enough trust between Korean Americans and the government. Yeah, for victims to feel safe asking for help. Yeah, that's better for me. Korean and I'm gonna make that a little bigger. Yeah, okay. I feel good about that. All right, I have a third point. But to be honest, I got to think about it a little bit more. I hope this helps to know. I think that like literally, I have a master's degree. I'm like 25, and for me, this is hard. Like, you're doing hard work. Because you actually have to think about everything you've learned and begin organizing it. And it's okay if it takes a little bit of time. Like, we're your teachers, and I think we know. I think like what it's like to have to do this. Um, but just know, like, you are doing such incredible work, and Miss Ramos and I are already beyond proud of all of you. And we really believe that, I think, the work you do right now matters. It matters in terms of the issues you're looking at, and it matters because I think you're educating people and helping create change so that these things don't happen as much. And on that note, I'm going to come back to this later and keep working on it. But please know that I love you all. I hope that you're doing okay wherever you are with this. Reach out for help. Literally, my phone. I have a problem. I never stop looking at this. So please text me, shoot me an email, do whatever you gotta do. Snapchat me if you need to, I think, ask for help. But like, just know that we're here for you and we care. And don't forget about the Google Hangout on Friday, 4 p.m. 6 p.m. Check Classroom for that link. I'm gonna drop that, I think, like a mixtape. You have been great. Mr. Kim signing off. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.